I was gonna say, like, if I was gonna make a Spore game now, like it would be different than I would like basically like use that book as my Bible, probably. Now that I think about it, that'd be like this is the map.
Hello, everyone, to this special Thrive-ish podcast-ish thing. This is a little bit different format than we usually do. I hope that we are recording this Zoom call correctly. So I am Tim, a programmer. I've been on a few of the podcasts before. I've done some other videos and such. We also have Game Dungeon, another one of our programmers here, and Deus, our lead game designer. If you guys want to introduce yourselves anymore, let me know.
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And we also have with us, I believe, Dr. Chaim Gingold, who has worked on a few things here. He actually worked on Earth, a Primer, which is like a geology textbook, but you get to poke the science. He wrote not the book, a book on SimCity. And he also, first but not least, did a little game called Spore, which of course is the only reason we are here. Did I get any of that wrong?
That sounds pretty good to me.
Excellent, excellent. So we were very excited. Just we've really been trying to follow in your footsteps all these years and build something to really build on what we imagined we'd hoped Spore would be all these years later. You can see my Galactic Edition in the corner and that poster up. This might be the last time that poster unfolds without cracking. So we really wanted to get a chance to talk to you, and then maybe show the product we have. Hope to get some validation from an OG real Spore developer.
Sounds great.
Awesome, awesome. So I understand that you actually originally started as an intern with Maxis under Will Wright's team back in, I believe, probably 2000, 2001, like well before any of us got to see that GDC demo.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it was, I guess it would have been, I'm just doing the math. I graduated college in 1997, so no, that was high school. So I finished, I would be so 2002, 2001, maybe 2002 or something like that. I have to look it up. But I also when I interned with EA with Will Wright and his team. At the time, the Sims Online was the project that Maxis was focused on developing, and there were like three Spore developers that he had, kind of this kind of back burner project going that I think he had been going for many years actually already. And they were actually all working on the Sims Online, and so there was already this even then there was already this back catalog of pretty amazing stuff that people had made.
I was really interested reading some of your older articles on your website about like just how kind of wild these prototypes were. Like there's a galaxy simulation over here and there's some cellular automata going on. I mean, I know some of those intersect. Um, was there ever a sense that like it wasn't going to come together, or maybe there was never going to be a game in the first place?
Meaning like this was a risky project that might not work.
Not even that it wouldn't work. I saw a parallel between some of those early prototyping periods you talked about and those very early days of Thrive. As a quick background, Thrive started like a year or two after Spore released by some grumpy Spore fans. None of us were around at the time, who wanted to make the ultimate Spore. And there's a bunch of prototypes, a little Python thing here, a little web-based thing there.
Yeah.
And there was a sense that none of it was really coming together in any sort of game. So I was really surprised, kind of hopefully surprised, to hear that it almost sounded like Spore was a little bit the same way. There was a bunch of tiny things and not really a coherent, it seemed like not a really a coherent stream of what the game was going to look like back in those like early 2000s days.
Yeah, I think that part of it is sort of is like just the creative process, and part of it is Will Wright's creative process, which is to explore an idea. You sort of make a bunch of prototypes and sort of probe the design space and see what's possible. And so I don't think that it was a matter that there was a sense in which we didn't know how these different design ideas would come together, but it was also like there wasn't it was sort of where we were in the process at the same time that it was an exploratory thing. So there was like, for instance, the most I came in, I did three prototypes in 3 months. One of them was like Stellar Automata, for bacteria, for galaxy, and for civilization spreading galaxies, some weird architecture stuff, some but then other, like Ocean Quigley, the art who became the art director, had all these like 3D prototype videos of 3D renders of like different kind of concepts for editing creatures and things like that. And then Jason Schenkel he'd been working out the longest, and he had a prototype called Pot Holder, Powers of 10 Holder. And it was like it would actually let you zoom in and out of different scales. And it had everything from like you could sculpt you can sculpt
Oh, okay.
nebular gas and like make them into stars. So you can kind of do this whole sort of play the whole life cycle of stars, right? In this, and it was like this, volumetric simulation. It was very, and like you could like send, yeah, you could even like send colonies across the galaxy. And so there was a lot in there, different scales. And so there's all the different prototypes. I remember being very impressed as an intern with all of this and the process too. And at the time, Will Wright showed me his prototypes for The Sims, which were also, you can see, I don't think I realized at the time, but he was trying to show me like, this is how you develop something ambitious. Like The Sims prototypes were like, here's one that's just the motive simulator. It's like a 2D, like there's no space. It's just a guy, like a head with some icons around it and some meters. And so these different prototypes that just explore different aspects of what became The Sims, even before there was a concept of how it would gel. But of course, we knew that The Sims would gel. And so but there was still meant that there were still scary design problems with Spore. So in the interval between when I left, I was doing an internship from my master's program. The year I left, I came back a year later, and the team had been sort of put back together. The Sims Online was done, and there was another designer, Chris Trottier, who came on, and some other folks, and people were working on it full time. And at that point, there was a concept of what the user experience would be from beginning to end. So I think that's what we didn't have when I was interning. It was like a bunch of cool science prototypes, but it wasn't like, who do you play? What do you try to do? And then after that, there was a concept of like, you're going to progress through these different levels, these like clearly defined levels. And so
Kind of that Powers of
that
10
was like,
structure.
yeah, I mean, there always was the notion. Yeah, I guess, right. I guess, right. It's like there's always the notion of different powers of 10 scale, but like the narrative, like the powers of 10 video, the film has a narrative. And so it's like the structure is that narrative that goes to the powers of 10.
Oh,
I guess that's what you're saying. That's what now we had was like a story of what the player would be doing and when and why and who they were. Like there was no sense of who you were in those early prototypes. Like you were like a
The ball
god,
of
like
gas.
I guess like you were about well, you were like a god, like you were the traditional Maxis sim game god. Even in Sim City, you're like a mayor, but you have these godlike powers, and
I might ask a question if you don't mind, and Chaim as well,
No,
of
go ahead.
course.
Go ahead.
yeah.
It sounds like this is something we confront a lot too, where we have this expansive scope of just, for our case, it's the simulation of evolution throughout everything almost. And in your case, in the beginning of the prototypes, it was kind of this God game where biology and science and physics kind of combine. What process do you think you guys use to kind of nail down where your scope would be and end? And what did going about that decision-making process look like, if you remember anything about that at all?
Um, I mean, I think scope that's like one of the hardest things to do. I mean, it's one of the hardest things we wrestled with. It's also just one of the hardest things about game development and software development, also. And I think also it's one of the hardest things with any creative project. I mean, I struggle with it a lot. I think a lot of people do. So, and in this subject matter is one that is like it's hungry to expand the scope. Like there's a natural tendency for like everything. It's like everything connected to everything.
Absolutely, yes.
So the scope always wants to grow. So I think that's part of why I think when I came back and I saw that structure, that like sort of linear powers of 10 narrative, and part of me was I was both sort of excited that there was like a clear direction to run in, but also disappointed because it's like, oh, the potential of like being able to do whatever it is, like, but part of what makes a game is that it's limited and it focuses you, and so you don't, you have like in real life we have unlimited choices. Many of us, we have like many choices, many things we have to choose what we want to do. We choose our goals. And a game is nice because someone sits you down and says, okay, you're this, you're trying to do that, you can do one of these things. It's like very freeing to have those constraints. So I think that's the challenge. So what did we do? I think that I mean, sitting down, I think that, Chris, one of the things I learned from her that was really great was she always would ask, what is the player doing at this moment? Like, and why, like, when, why, And I think I think if you're designing a game, that's always a good question. It's like, what is the player actually going to be doing here?
And
Because it's easy to get lost in the simulation. Yeah.
may I ask quickly, who exactly is Chris, if I missed that part?
Chris Trottier. Chris Trottier was the lead designer for Spore for
Okay,
many,
okay,
many years,
thank
and
you.
she
Yeah.
was a producer on The Sims, worked closely with Will. She and Will were very tight, and they were sort of always. She was like she was kind of helping run the design meetings and was a lead designer for Spore for many
Understood.
years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so she came out. So I think it was her that sort of helped shape the unruly, kind of messy, sprawling prototypes into a kind of cohesive division of like sort of the player's experience through the game. So she was very focused, like, what's the player doing, right? Yeah.
Awesome.
But of
Okay.
course, as you know, the other problem with evolution is the question of player agency.
And I think this is something I recently thought when, reviewing back on Spore. Having since working on Thrive, I've probably rewatched the GDC 2005 demo at least 10 times and had a slightly different impression of what happened with Spore each
Yeah,
time. But part of me wonders, because, Will Wright's talking about, the Drake equation and the powers of 10, which are similar ideas, not the exact same thing. And then on the other hand, this procedural generation and creativity and sharing through the Sporepedia. And part of me wonders,
yeah.
are those conflicting narratives? Because, the Sporepedia is all about expansion, openness, unlimited possibility. But Drake's equation literally is, here's all your stars, and we're just going to keep whittling them down if they're not good enough until very few gets through the process.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about that. Is there a tension between Drake's equation and I mean, the idea of, for Will, what he wanted with the pollinated content was that other players would be making stuff. It's like it was a multiplayer without being synchronous multiplayer. That other people would be making their creations would be showing up in your universe, excuse me, and that's how we'd get that surprising creative breadth of alien life, right? That was the purpose there. And actually, the idea of a browsable Sporepedia was something that was not part of the original design idea. That actually came about through um, that was actually one of that came about as a result of one of the prototypes that I created and then collaborated with another engineer on. That was the first prototype we did in-house where we had an editing tool and you could make stuff and it would be and it would basically it was like a 2D editor. You could like make these little combined shapes and color them and make little designs for buildings and whatever creatures. And you could then browse other people's stuff in the inside, so you load it up and show other people's stuff in the office that people were making. So there's like one database. At the time, this is like, and for 2025, this is a very unsurprising idea given where the web went. But for at the time, it was quite strange or quite unusual for us. And then we were like, or it was new. And it was like, it's really fun to see your name attached to a thing and has someone else made in the office. And you can see how it created all these competitive dynamics. Like the artists started getting very competitive with each other. And it was like, and the quality of the work that was being made like went up and up and up. And you could see like the art director kind of O'Shea, for instance, like trying to like make sure that his work was really good and he wasn't being outshone by some of the artists is how it felt to me. Right. And so and through that and Will was resistant to the idea of you would see other people's stuff and be able to like know who made it. He wanted it to be sort of opaque. And so the Sporepedia came about. We were obviously riffing on Wikipedia, but we were but obviously the original encyclopedia. But anyhow, it was like something it was like an emergency that came out of the product. We're like, this is really fun. We should push in that direction of letting you browse the people's stuff. Make sure we
And
have support that too. But that was a long-standing debate within the team for sure.
sorry, what was the debate between?
And that was a long-standing debate within the team of how much agency the player how much you should be able to see the origin, sort of the authorial origin of content.
Oh,
Like whether it should be like totally transparent, like stuff just shows up and it's cool and you don't know where it comes from versus letting you actually see like, oh, like a social experience, right? It wasn't social. Like to make it social where you could see there's a browser where you can browse other people's content and see who made what. Like there was a tension there. Are you able to control, influence what shows up in your game? You know, because I think you can. Can you? I think you can. You control? Can you control what shows
You
up? Yeah, you
can.
can. Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
button to say I don't want any more from this person. There's also like an upvote and
yeah,
downvote system. I've seen YouTube videos on like the best Spore content creators, and oh, you got to subscribe to this guy.
yeah.
They
Right,
might be
right.
very concerned to hear that almost didn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like and we had at the time. I remember when we were working on the Sporepedia. It's amazing the Sporepedia is still up and it works. Because I remember at the time we had like the developer who did that. We hired an engineer who specifically came at the time. Like I think it was Ajax was the it was like that was the cutting edge like web technology for doing these like interact because the time you guys might be too young to remember this, but like there was a time before the web was like really interactive. It was like you click a button, you go to like another page. And so Ajax was like, I think it was at the time was the acronym, I think, or for like the tech stack that let you like you could like be like interacting. It was like what Facebook or something at the time, that kind of the technology did, where like you could like interact with stuff and it would be changing in real time on the interacting on the web page. It was very, feels very quaint now, but at the time it was very cutting edge. And we hired this engineer who had this specialized expertise in this area, and I think he actually came from he had worked on some porn site. Like that was his prior job. We hired him away from that to work on Spore. He was very happy to be, to come work with us because he was just like, oh my God, like it was just like, because he's like an engineer, a web developer, and he's just like, he's like, yeah, we had these, we could just kind of black out all the content and just kind of like, we had like, we could just do that enough to look at it, like, but it was like but that was like that was a technically ambitious thing, and that's part of why for me it's like so interesting to see it now still running, still works, and it also feels very old and very quaint.
I
By
just
the way, oh,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say one of our other game designers popped in right now, Ratlos. So if they want to introduce themselves, they can.
Hi, that's me. I'm actually a quite recent addition to the team. So, well, a lot of the recent experience has been getting to terms with what the design looks like. And since I'm
Uh-huh.
also trying to get myself integrated into the code side too, what that part looks like,
Uh-huh.
which is been quite some work at sometimes because, the classic thing is always you try to improve one small aspect of something, and that turns out to then depend on a chain of 5 to 10 other things that were at some point dropped by someone who said, if we ever want to improve this or expand this in any way, these 5 other things also need to be expanded first. So good luck.
Right on.
And
Feel good to meet you.
This probably isn't completely unfamiliar, but especially in open source, the turnover from developers is quite high. And like we've said, nobody here is part of the original dev team from when this project started. So the code base, just like somebody adds their layer onto the code base, and then a new team
Yeah.
comes in, they add their layer on top. And just over time, as it just continues to grow, and it's completely foreign by the time it ends.
We are on our third generation of developers, actually. No one who was originally here is still here, and no one who met anyone who was originally here is still here.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
the development team of Theseus.
Yeah. Well, I imagine the, LLMs are pretty useful for understanding what's going on in the code base.
Yeah.
All right.
Tim, did you have another question you wanted to ask, or?
I've been dominating this conversation too much. Go ahead.
Well, someone feel free to interject me, but as I went about creating the larger concept for we call it the macroscopic editor, which would allow you to create
Uh-huh.
the kind of, the animals, the larger creatures which have a form and a shape composed of multiple cells. There's this tension between, like you mentioned, almost player agency and kind of sticking to the source material of this being a rigorous scientific game. Now, Spore, it's had its, well-known story of, balancing science and the more kind of creative, fun, approachable aspect of it. If you have any memory of how that process looked like and coming up with how the editor will play, can you share any details for that? Or
Yeah, I mean that was sort of something that was in something that we were sort of figuring out the whole project. I do remember there's one very particular memorable moment that so actually I should say when I came back from my internship, there was a new artist on the team, John Simino, and John's amazing, and he was trained as an animator, and he was really good at doing these 2D kind of cartoony creatures that were just like very appealing.
Hmm.
And he also was a very, very good character designer. Like, so I think, Ocean's Quigley, the art director, his background was more like he done SimCity and he's very like he's a very good painter. So he's very realistically oriented and also he's like a super he's a very nerdy guy. He's very interested in science. And so and then John came on, and so but Ocean wasn't like a character designer, also that's a very specific specialty, right? And so John would just kind of crank out these creatures. They were so compelling. And he also like really understood kind of anatomically and design wise what makes a good character, like for like for like if you're gonna make up a creature for like a film or something like that.
Hmm.
So he was, and I've talked about this also, but John was very influential for me in designing the creature creator. Like I really like learned a lot from him, sort of took his expertise and leveraged it in this design of the creature creator. But so part of it was the structure, sort of the how to the scheme of what a creature is, the backbone and the legs and the arms. At the time, it wasn't obvious to do it like that, but we did that. But John also had his particular style, which he drew those things. And there was and like so we could have done it in a more realistic or less realistic way. And that was I remember there was one meeting where uh we were trying to like kind of have it was like we're trying to like a come to Jesus moment around like what's the style going to be, what's the what route, like. And I remember, and Bob King, the animation director, I think he orchestrated this. It was like really good creative process where he was like, well, let's if our we're debating like how cartoony versus realistic we're going to make our creatures. Let's make a put up a make a much make take the same thing, make a line up on a wall like on a scale of like 1 to 10. It was like 10. It was like 10 pictures in a row. There may have been more, but it was like basically a continuum of images of creatures. On the left was super cartoony. On the right was like super realistic, like a photograph of a rhinoceros. And on the left was like a cartoon, for like Looney Tunes of
Hmm.
the rhinoceros. In the middle, it's kind of morphed all the way. And I remember and everyone had their own considerations. Like the animation director, Bob, is like, how am I gonna, how am I gonna animate this, and make it like do all the things we need these creatures to be able to do? Because rhinoceroses don't, go to outer space and talk to other. So I mean, there's like there's all these considerations when making a game, right? In this game in particular. So we lined them all up, and I remember like, so Bob King organized this. Bob actually is from Uniontown, and he went to WVU like me, had the same graphic design teacher, apparently. This great guy.
Oh wow.
So we lined them all up, and I remember like Lucy Bradshaw, the executive producer, was there, like Will was there, of course, and like Trish Tratier and like Ocean and probably many other people. We were like had this kind of that putting that up on the wall helped us sort of decide like where we were going to land. We're like, okay, we're going to like aim for here. Because it was like before that we were kind of like some of us were like we're going here, some of us were going there. So just in terms of the visual style, um that was really important. The creatures like also they sort of were like the keynote, for the whole thing in a sense. If you remember like the Spore box, I remember Big Gordon, that EA's chief creative officer, who's really comes from he's really has like a marketing orientation to his work. He was like he's like I remember much earlier development. Yeah, maybe it's the other box, but there's like he was like or the posters, but he's like the creature is going to be the thing on the poster on the cover of the box. Like that's the thing that people are gonna that's the thing they're gonna relate to. So it was like we knew that the creatures had to be appealing, compelling. So doing like a photograph of rhinoceros versus like a character that is someone that you might, you know, feel like you can have a conversation with or something, like that. That was and how that compound that. What I think the Disney animators call it appealing. They call it like appealing character design. That so we knew that they needed to be appealing. Yeah.
So what if hypothetically your main character was a blob without any eyes?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the game, I think it'd be great if the game lets you do that. I guess the question would be functionally, how would they sense the world so they could survive? Maybe there's some way they do without eyes. But like,
Can you make
yeah,
a
I think that
blob without eyes appealing?
yeah, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can, but I think you would have to like do some research. You'd have to like look at look, I'm sure that if you look at at the treasure trove of animation that exists out there, you will find that. I mean, there's the classic actually I know I have one for you. If you look at the Disney The Illusion of Life, that's the classic book on Disney animation, the sort of the standard exercise that Disney animators would give people coming in, the first thing they do is animate a flour sack.
I
That's the
want
first, that's the thing. And bring it and give it like and give it life, give it like feeling and emotion and action. Yeah.
I want to apologize for asking a leading question there. The reason I actually said that is because in our microbe stage, our one of our versions of the cell stage, you literally start as a little sphere with no eyeballs, and you
Yeah.
start from there. Our realism conversation was, are you allowed to see anything else on the screen? Because
Oh no. You
You
froze
froze up a
again.
bit, but I think he was
And we
talking about
can't.
how cells they use chemoreception instead of actual vision.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
those tiny things, what can you visually portray? Almost, but we
Right.
need a game at the end
Well,
of
you
the day,
should. Yeah. Well, I guess if you're the player's gonna be interacting with it, interacting with the game through a screen and a mouth, so a screen, then you probably need to show something. I'm like, so it's kind of like you're gonna need to represent the chemo sensory input as visual to the player. But that's actually that's like a very interesting idea. Like I feel like that in itself could be very interesting, you know,
Yeah,
interaction game design concept. It'd be
yeah,
kind of like a blurriness to it or something, like as things kind of it's like, like as like as like a the input comes in and it kind of like decays, and the chemicals decay or something.
yeah. I think there's the opportunity to be a lot more kind of dynamic with that. And we call we call macroscopic stages the stages after you become a multicellular organism, where you're
Yeah,
actually interacting with the physical world. I think those stages open up a lot more, but because the microbe stage is inherently 2D, I think that's there's a challenge to kind of
yeah,
obscuring information in that medium, if that makes sense. But
yeah. There's a book that I wish I had read when I were working on Spore. I wish I had known about Lynn Margulis's work. You familiar with that name? She's a
which
Lynn Margulis is her name. So
Lynn
you're
Margulis?
familiar with yeah, so you're familiar you've heard Carl Sagan. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, Casa. So Carl Sagan's first wife was Lynn Margulis. And Lynn Margulis is the co-creator, along with James Lovelock, of the Gaia hypothesis. And Margulis is the microbiologist. And one of the things, and she revolutionized the field of microbiology. One of the things that the idea that the mitochondria inside of our cells have their own DNA distinct from the DNA
Mhm.
of the surrounding cell. Like it's like she's the one who I think she established that. And then I think also and then she explained also the mechanism. And the mechanism is called what's it called?
Endosymbiosis.
Endosymbiosis. Yeah,
Yeah, we
thank you.
actually cover
Thank
that
you.
in the game.
You do great. So that's her. So serial endosymbiosis is like that repeat that iteration of that process over time. But so she has this amazing argument around evolution that it's not just, I mean, what the implication is that it's not just competition. That like the way you create novel organisms is not through just things out competing one another. It's actually different organisms working in close cooperation and then together forming new organisms out of that, right? It's actually like a radical idea that is like pretty, it's like it upsets the sort of traditional Darwinian notion, sort of frame of evolution, but it's accepted at this point. But even if people are still struggling to sort of work through its ramifications. But she has this amazing book that she co-wrote with her son called What is Life? I can't recommend this book too high. It's one of my favorite science books of all time.
Huh.
There's a few speculative things in there that apparently are wrong, but for the most part, it's all right. And it's just it's probably like the best science writing I've ever read in my life.
Wow, that's a strong
And she
recommendation.
talks a lot about I think things that are relevant to the cell game in there. And probably your whole project, actually.
That's awesome.
Would you be
If I
tempted
was
to add
gonna
all
do a
that in?
spore, I was gonna say if I was gonna make a spore game now, like it would be different than I would like basically like use that book as my Bible, probably. Now that I think about it. That'd be like this is the map.
Pitch
Fixed
Spore 2 to me. I want
equation.
to know.
Switch way.
Pitch Spore 2 to me. You're in charge of Spore 2. What's the angle?
Well, I think this would still be more of an. I'm like I would do it the Lynn Margulis way. I would be more of an art project probably than like a mass market thing. But yeah, I was like, I pitch it to you right now.
That's okay.
Sorry, I don't have it in me right now. After if I reviewed the book, I can pitch you. I would definitely be excited to pitch you the Spore based on inspired by What Is Life, um, by Margulis and Sagan's version of it. But I don't have it in me right now. Sorry.
We'd be happy to hear anything you ever want to say. We've been around 15 years. We have more time.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great question though. I will give you that.
No worries. Well, I don't know if other people had questions and stuff. I know we were hoping to just kind of show you some of the stuff.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see.
I think he was about to say he would like to show at least some of the things we have been working on. So
I think so too.
I will be controlling the
someone-
game in the
Oh,
background,
perfect.
and the rest of you can talk over it.
Thank you, Rafael.
If Tim enables the screen sharing again. So, slight delay in that, but because I think Tim is the host. Technical difficulties. 1 second, let me see if I can get a hold of him again.
Yeah, it seems to be frozen, but it's a Zoom call. When you hear this idea of, a realistic spore, quote unquote, what do you think? Well, you mentioned the book. Oh, there you go, the screen sharing. But you mentioned the book that you mentioned, of course. But what do you kind of look for in that declaration that you would really be impressed by? Big question, I know, but
I don't know. I don't know. There's so many ways to do it. Yeah. I love what I'm seeing already with the volcanoes. Oh, what? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think about things that it's like the cosmic scale and also the compellingness. Like I think about like that What Is Life book is very compelling. Carl Sagan's Cosmos series, very compelling.
Mm.
And then if you see One Strange Rock? This is beautiful.
One
One Strange Rock is oh my God. It's like so good. It's this
I'll add to my
documentary
list.
series produced by Darren Aronofsky and like Will Smith, the actor,
Huh.
is in it. He's so good. It is so good. I cannot endure. I'm just gonna say, just go watch it.
I'll add it to my list for sure.
Oh my gosh.
Rock.
Well, right now Rathos is loading into the game itself, which begins as a tutorial, but it begins in the hydrothermal vents, akin to
Oh, cool.
a lot of traditional interpretations of the origin of life. So
I like the kind of cinematic titling.
That was a feature someone just decided to add one day.
It's like adds a lot. It's like where are we? So here we are, the environment. Oh, yeah, we got this is the underwater environment. This is like some very Submerthy vibes.
Huh.
The
Yeah.
chemical compositions, right?
Yeah, in a way, because especially in the beginning of the game where there's not much of the other life forms evolved,
Yeah.
It's mostly about figuring out your chemistry. You have multiple input
So
potentials, you have multiple metabolism styles. You just ate a poison right there, but you have
how do I
multiple.
know? How would a player know what they're supposed to be doing right now? Like, are they just, is it through like experimentation? Like, how do I know which thing is good and bad? Because the red, just like, I'm going to discover by the red flashing and the,
There's that, and also there's a tutorial to enable for new players. So that can give them some guidance. But if you take damage, you see that little description in the middle of your screen that says damage by
yeah,
X, or this is what's happening. So
yeah.
it is one thing we're
Uh-oh,
always
radiation.
yeah,
Uh-oh.
one thing we're always mindful of is the new player experience. I'm someone who likes to advocate for a tougher game, but this already is inherently a pretty dense game to take in all at once. So there's always something to be mindful of.
And even when it's not a super dense game at the intensity, there's that first level of, do I start by looking at these pretty clouds and trying to eat them, or do I read all these compound equations on the left side? If
Yeah.
tutorials were on, those two boxes on the left are actually start closed, because like you don't need to know that. Just touch each color and see which one hurts you. We'll talk about chemistry later.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I like that. Okay, now we're gonna evolve. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, there's so much stuff to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the big thing. This is the auto evo report, which lets you understand what other life forms look like, what the atmosphere and environment looks like, the compounds. Wow, Raffles is doing a great job with his mouse guiding. And the
What should
physical
there be?
conditions. Go ahead.
Uh-huh,
Sorry.
I see. We have, curious what the dense, how many other organisms I should be seeing at this stage. Like what the density is of other cells.
Are you asking how
Or
many
is it,
other ones there tend to be?
yeah, no, I saw a few others, but it's like, are
Yeah.
they, because I've seen some images of bacterial colonies, and it's like they're like teething, seeming, teething,
Yeah.
teeming with them.
Now, if you see this is
Oh,
the
what
patch
is
map.
this?
Yeah, this is the patch map, which lets you see kind of the world around you. There are multiple
Oh, that's
potential biomes
cool.
to live in, and organisms can spread throughout these environments and
Oh,
adapt to more
interesting.
or less favorable conditions. So,
Cool.
to kind of segue off your previous point about kind of density, once the world is more evolved, then there really is the potential for these huge swarms of bacteria. We're always working on improvements to AI to make it more engaging, more threatening. But even now, you might see hordes of little tiny bacterium that spit poison at you, which they evolve by themselves, or this large organism kind of trying to soak around this one chunk that it gets a lot of its food from. So there's a lot of emergent behavior from these situations already.
That's cool.
Yeah.
In this case, I'm going to stick around here instead of immediately moving on so that we can actually see some more life as it develops here.
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think. But with moving across different patches, you become the pioneer species oftentimes. Because the beginning of the world or the beginning of the game starts at abiogenesis almost, or as you as Luca almost. So the world is empty until you and your descendants spread throughout it. And this is footage of the editor, which lets you kind of compose your organism. If you see the tooltip that Raffles is currently on, is on rusty cyanin, which lets you absorb iron compounds, which float around the chunks. This lets you, you input these products and then you create either ATP or another energy source that transitions to ATP from them. So
is this space the edit? Are we editing the
yes,
creature right
sir.
now?
Yes, it is.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
What if you could do like uh what's the word again? Where the mitochondrial move, the Margolis move.
Endosymbiosis.
In the symbiosis.
And the symbiosis, you kind of like, it's like gonna be like Kirby, like you go and you like find some
Yeah.
other creature doing something that's helpful to you, and like you hang out, and it kind of like you don't eat them, but maybe you hang out next to them long enough, and then you kind of gain the option to like join up with them.
Yeah. Right
Maybe like
now,
a cheaper evolutionary move.
yeah. Right now, endosymbiosis is a feature. It remembers what organisms you consumed in the prior generations. If you consume,
Ah,
if you target a species as your endosymbiont, which is who you're trying to
yeah,
create into an organ, every
yeah,
time you consume that organism and future generations, it becomes a eukaryotic part for prokaryote, for example. And if you do
yeah,
that,
yeah.
for example, 3 times for some organisms that are very favorable, you unlock that part. So it's kind of a very scientific flair version of collect X amount of items to unlock this part.
Got it.
Hopefully we get to a point where we can see that. But
Uh-oh, no ATP.
yeah,
We're getting damaged, no ATP. Oh, because are we starving? Is that what's happening?
yes, yeah, this organism is starving currently. So
And swimming through hydrogen sulfide.
yeah, that'll do it to you.
Bad combination.
Yeah. So there's the first death of the playthrough. And you see those savage microbes trying to eat the guts.
So do you find it's hard to identify with these little bubbles in their life and death struggles, particularly when they're young and featureless right now?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the I was advocating strongly for I was like, how would Pixar show? I think one of the things I said was like, how would Pixar make a movie about a single cell organism? It's like they definitely put eyes on it.
You actually saw an
Especially
engulfment over there.
Oh yeah,
oh, I
you can
like
see that.
these other creatures. This cool. They're kind of there seems like they have their own sort of
Every organism evolves
some interesting
dynamically.
dynamics.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
organism evolves dynamically from our auto ecosystem, which is what we term our
Uh,
algorithm, which defines how organisms evolve. So eventually, they'll probably need some tweaking now, but eventually these organisms turn to eukaryotes and predators, autotrophs, chemolithotrophs, a bunch of different organisms. Obviously, with any sort of procedural item like this, it's a matter of balancing it until you find a favorable outcome, but also measuring the objectives of the game almost. So that's always a little dance that I think Rathlos and Game Dungeon might have some input about. But
It's one of those deviations, I think, from Spore is that, because we don't have our equivalent of the Sporopedia where you're sharing creatures across worlds, because everything's supposed to originate and derive from other things, we had to make kind of a new form of procedural generation focused on how do you procedurally show if I had run this simulation for another 100 million years, what would have evolved? Because the player doesn't have time to keep doing generation after generation. The player wants to get through the game in a human lifetime.
yes, and
right.
if you see what Rathlos is currently going through, that's the
Yeah,
evolutionary tree of the life forms right now. So
that's cool.
um, you can see
Got
what
it.
exists.
So the auto Evo is growing this tree.
Yes, yeah,
That's cool. And you're one of the and you're playing one of the leaves of it.
yeah. Your Rathlos is currently premium trivium, which is the top fruit right now. So it's a
It's like there should be like a you are here.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
The trees get
I mean,
very big after a while.
Yeah.
it's interesting. It almost makes me wonder if in that screen it was like a you are here. It might be interesting to let the players kind of play any switch who they are. Like why not just like jump around?
Yeah, that's a discussion actually we had revolving around the concept of difficulty, right? Where if we're
Yeah.
enforcing how interconnected all of life is, then if you go extinct, quote unquote, with one species, perhaps you switch to another one to continue on life on this planet. Because it's that quote, like 99% of everything goes extinct after,
Yeah.
ultimately.
I mean, it could. It's like a nice. It's interesting because it like puts the player agency back in a system that actually doesn't need it, right? Because the auto evo could just be pushing the tree and growing the tree, and the player could just be sort of choosing where they want to play in that tree, and so they would then be both dynamically adjusting their difficulty for the kind of experience they want to have. but sort of their sort of designing the creature they want is like less important. Like it's like more realistic sort of representation player agency. Am I making sense? Like in terms of it's, I feel like to me, I just realized that this is like that's an interesting way of reconciling player agency with because like the players don't people don't design the creatures, obviously. Like evolution, no one designs the creature. But if you can jump around the tree, you're in a sense like saying, great, you have a player agency as a player. I'm not violating the sort of evolutionary, you know,
Like you're picking the
determination
winners
of
at the horse race.
not picking the winner. I'm just playing which horse I'm gonna play. The horses are evolving and speciating and doing their thing. And well, I guess yeah, maybe through like what are the consequences of your play, I suppose. I don't know, but just being able to jump around, it's interesting.
We
That is
have the
interesting. Yeah.
And
feature.
all and it's a little bit sorry, it's a little bit like that classic blind watchmaker interface. You know about that?
I do not.
Does that ring a bell? So Richard Dawkins wrote this book, The Blind Watchmaker, a very famous book about evolution. If you haven't read it, you should totally check it out. He's also did work in early, like in the artificial life community, and he built this. Right, so he built this. He's like a biologist. He wrote this program for his Mac that would evolve different like 2D. You call them biomorphs, I think. He had a little genetic algorithm, but you like it would basically it would give you like a grid of them, and then you would like choose which one you liked more, and it would like evolve more in that direction. So like that's a kind of a standard GA sort of user interface. And but I think he was the first to do it. So it's called the blind watchmaker interface. So you're just kind of choosing. I want it to be more like that, more like that, more like that. Like Photoshop variations, but for evolution. So you're playing like you're doing the directed you're doing like just like directed evolution. You're like breeding the creatures. So anyhow, it's just also it's I'm like that's another way of thinking about the blind watchmaker interface too. Because like
Interesting.
things are
Yeah.
branching. I'm choosing where I want to be and also kind of influencing where the direction the tree is growing.
Yeah. If you notice now, Rathlos created an organism that can consume iron, but it's not perfectly
Oh.
adapted to its niche yet. So it doesn't produce enough. At least I think that's what happened. It doesn't produce enough energy through iron only to sustain movement. So this is an
Oh.
organism that can only burst if it has only iron in its structure, if that makes sense.
It will only burst.
Sorry, may I repeat?
I just didn't catch I didn't catch everything you said.
Oh,
What's the red line?
that's a Rathlos
That's
put down
chemoreception.
a chemoreceptor, which kind of symbolizes the greater
Oh.
ability to detect a specific compound or microbe or anything like that. So, but with the if you see this damage, Rathlos actually
Yeah.
has the iron in the system, but um he needs both glucose and iron to sustain its metabolism. So this organism is having a bit of a tough time because it only has iron but no glucose.
Another affordance we've been doing here, is that you see all these bacteria are moving. Realistically, that's not really what you'd be seeing. You'd be seeing a lot of floating around and doing nothing, but you got
Yeah.
to have some player agency. We
Yeah.
sacrificed the eyeballs, so we can't really trade away too much more.
I was just thinking like the colors are so vibrant, and I was thinking about like you could make the maybe you're already doing this actually, but like your ability to perceive them as an organism could like meaning like do you have the right sensory apparatuses in your body could change how they're rendered on the screen. So like if you have a really good maybe you can discern the different compounds really well, so that you get these bright, colorful, just uh they're rendered in these very distinct colors versus like
Oh,
kind of fog of war, like kind of like gray, and you're like you just don't know what it is.
Until you lick it.
Then it's like some of it kills you and some of it you could eat, but you're just like, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. Maybe it's like, so you can, or maybe it's like, maybe you gotta have show some kind of textural difference, but like, can make it very subtle versus very clear.
Yeah, it's a question of, since we throw so much information at new players who are not fully
I
adapted,
know.
having the situation where you obscure some information could be another really tough layer for them to deal with, So
Well, I would say, yeah, I don't, the flip side of that is the notion of progressive disclosure, where you, it's actually hard to come in and see a lot of information all at once as a new player. So you actually could use it to your advantage for a new player if there's less, like, think about playing a Metroidvania. Like, you come in and like there's all the stuff you can do, you don't even know about it yet, right? You don't have the abilities unlocked. But so that actually is helpful because it lets a new player not get overwhelmed with all the stuff that they might do in the future. So it's like, so I would say the flip side of it would be like progressive disclosure, where you actually can like, make the information display calm down a bit. And so there's
Mhm.
less for them to assimilate when they come in. But then as they get more expert, the world is like, oh, there's actually more detail here. There's more stuff to do and see. Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's something we keep in mind for sure, but obviously, as we include more features, more information needs to be decided on how to handle, So that is something that we consistently, I wouldn't say struggle
Yeah.
with, but we consistently consider all the time, If you noticed in the past
Yeah.
scripts of the editor, Rathlos changed up his organism to fully rely on iron instead of glucose now, because the combination of glucose and iron was a bit too much to
There's some
sustain
iron,
for
there's
this
some iron, there's
simple
some
organism.
no, you're not
Ah,
correct.
man.
You know what I kind of want to see is like can you hop back to the detail view of the creature in the editor? Or is that possible to like see that? I feel like I kind of want to see that in the like in the heads up, like in the HUD, like
Do
that like design. See,
go
there's a
back into
lot
the
on
game
here.
and hit space and use the fossilization menu. You can look at stuff in
Oh,
like the Thrivepedia.
Fossilization menu. Well,
So you can't hot swap in a game, but you can always fossilize anything you see in the world. And you
no,
can store it.
no, I mean, I just mean like I'm like you because like Deus was telling me like, oh, he made these changes. Like Rathos made these changes. I'm like, oh, I kind of want to like in the corner where I have this is the bottom right is like my is like that's about me, right?
It is. There's also the
yes.
process panel.
It's like it's almost like you can put the little like a detail of like my guy there, like a little like detailed rendering, so I can see my design or something.
Oh,
I don't know
kind of
because
like,
it's also
oh, go ahead, sorry.
like we can be combined with this or something. I don't know. You know, see what I'm pointing with the stuff in
Kind of like
the G
a
and shift.
detail on how you're getting your energy in a given moment, almost.
Yeah, you could even like show like the parts of the bot,
It
the parts of the organism light up that are activated to kind of reinforce that connection.
actually
Because you're
we have
telling
the
me with your words, yeah.
yeah, okay, we have the process panel actually. If Rathos can click, which shows the processes going on in your organism and what it
Oh, that's
inputs.
cool. Oh, that's very interesting.
And with the
Yeah, I feel
tutorial,
like
oh,
yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
you can turn it off. It looks like.
Yeah, but then he just
You
starts
die.
because there's nothing going on. It
That's so
decides not to.
interesting.
You have
That's
decided
so
to
interesting.
stop breathing.
Yeah, it's
But
like holding its breath.
that's so interesting. That feels like the thing that I want to be. That feels like the most. That feels like the thing that I want to be seeing all the time
Hmm,
because it's connected to like the iron that's in the environment. It's like, yeah, there's some way to like connect the dot. I'm just thinking now as like my designer, information designer hat on. I'm like, there's like all these bits. The iron is in the bottom left corner, in the top right corner, sometimes with the cursor. It's in the world. It's like, and it's like I kind of want to like make that diagram like complete in the, very, very obvious to the player.
I see
Because
what
that's
you
like the
mean.
choice he just made is like that iron, you know. So it's like I can see it and not be told it. You know what I mean? Like,
I see
I
what
guess
you
if I
mean. Yeah.
did it, I would, yeah. And then there's probably another process that's like the ATP consumption that keeps up my health, right?
Yeah. Of
It's not
course,
in the
ATP is
process panel,
energy.
but you could, yeah, energy. But you could put it in there too, and then that you could starving could be very clear too. It'd be like that thing is like not being fed. Like that process is starved of
Yeah.
inputs.
there were prior ideas of having kind of a minimum viable ATP kind of measure in the process panel, for example, and it's dynamic. So, if you're making 6
Mhm.
ATP and you need 8, it will show on the process panel like, hey, you need 2 more to make up that difference and be functional almost. So,
And see, we have that in the editor, and I think the philosophy was, and I'm talking about decisions made by people who are no longer here, so I'm just guessing, is this is where you have the most choice in that. Because once you've
Yeah.
already gone out into the world, and this is a problem we've faced, with the tougher conditions, unlike Spore, where you can kind of move forward as any creature and you can mate at any time.
Yeah.
In Thrive, if you got your chemistry wrong by the time you're in the world, you might just kind of be out of luck until you go extinct, because if you can't make enough ATP to survive, you can't fix your metabolism with better gameplay. Which is why we show this in the upper right, like, hey,
Right.
here's your bank balance.
so that almost goes back to your idea related to the evolutionary tree, right? Where, if your organism
Yeah.
isn't working, it's not working. That's fine. But maybe you could have, maybe you could visit another part of the tree going forward and see how the life works after you're done, almost.
It's like there's two maps I'm navigating, and one is that spatial map with the stuff like cells, not like, what did you call it? The patch map.
Yes. Yeah.
Another map is like the evolutionary tree. Those are like the two maps that really matter. So really, I'm like navigating this evolutionary map and this spatial map, right? I'm like, by making a mutation, I'm making a new branch. I'm trying a new branch, or I'm potentially switching creatures. But I kind of want to see the like. It's like, and then when I'm playing the game, it's like that's I'm throwing the space in with the leaf that I've currently chosen, and I'm putting them together. But like showing these. I like want this is just like my inclination as a designer, right? Obviously you might have a very different take on it, but it's like, I'm like, I want to see the choices I made in the editor, those dynamic, those mechanics be
Well,
illustrated to me in the game very clearly. So I'm like, oh, that's I did that, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening now, for better or worse.
that is an interesting point. Yes. Yeah.
Compounds and environment, that what is the bottom left box for compounds? The environment is like that's just everywhere. Or yeah, what is the this is and compounds is just what's currently near me right now.
The way you kind of can think about it is the compounds box lets you know what
Yeah.
clouds are in your organism, and the environment lets
Yeah.
you know what kind of environmental factors there are in your environment. Because,
Wow.
for example,
Compounds is what's inside of me.
Yeah, this is
yes,
your
yes,
inventory,
In my
let's
body.
say.
yes, yeah,
It's my body.
yes. So if you look at the iron, the compounds bar is telling you you're full in iron, so that's what you're processing. If you get out of the iron cloud, stop consuming it, then it gets consumed. So that's what generates the ATP energy. And then when it gets to 0,
Yeah.
you start starving. So, you don't have to go to 0.
And what are
but
the
it's just
bars of the what are the bars on the bottom right? I mean,
bars on the bottom right. Oh,
the
uh,
pink, these big
pink is health,
bands.
green is energy generation, and the circle, the orange and the purple around the circle, that indicates your growth progression, which you can increase by absorbing ammonia or phosphate.
So that iron is being converted. The iron compound is being converted into pink health right now,
No, into
gradually.
the green energy, actually.
Into the green, into the green.
Yes,
Got it.
and you heal after a certain amount of time if you have enough energy,
Got it.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like I want to put those things together.
Yes, if I turn this off,
No more
Yeah,
green.
green bar
yeah.
drains because I have no energy, and because I
Now
have
you're
no
dying.
energy, I start dying. That's the
Yeah.
general idea.
Yeah, there's something interesting. It's very interesting.
If you see all that pink goop, that's all the other cells dying around them. So something's going on.
Interesting.
If you die, you drop your inventory.
Yeah, like I'm like, could you show like a call out, like a detail of of your body in the corner, and you could actually show the compounds inside of my body with the same color scheme as they're used in the environment, so I would see them kind of getting ingested and being transformed within me or something.
It's an interesting idea, because there's a few related bits of HUD here. I'm almost imagining the compound indicators and the health bar and fatigue bar kind of covering up your organelle layout, but you can kind of see your little blobus thing that's kind of your inventory bag, but also your body, because you're you're currently a bag of jelly.
Hmm.
You can see what's inside it, what it's doing.
Yeah. And then I would get rid of make the environment box like kind of more in the environment somehow visually, like make it less yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this one
Yeah.
is a bit unusual also because the difference is this one has got nothing to do with what's inside you, really. It's just the part of the
Yeah.
environment that's just everywhere instead of a specific
Yeah.
cloud.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's like I'm kind of like put it in the top left corner or something and kind of remove the frame and make it a little more kind of attached to the space itself.
mhm.
Now, it does
Yeah.
relate to metabolism because, for example, O2, oxygen, you see it's a top value in the environment panel.
Yeah.
When you have either a mitochondria or a metabolosome, it uses that oxygen level in your environment to create ATP off of glucose. But
Right. But
still
the
goes to the
environment is
point
like,
where,
but
yeah,
that's a statistical
exactly.
aggregate of the whole environment versus like on the screen, what's rendered in front of me is like what's actually here.
Good point.
So
Yeah,
that seems to
still,
be
yeah,
like, so this is like really, this environment box feels like it's really more like peripheral ambient information about the overall
yeah, yeah,
environment.
yeah. That point still stands. Absolutely, yes. Good
And it's
point, though.
like, that's the card. And it's kind of like, and it's like, that's that same kind of card, the same information display card should be the same one I see in the patch view,
Yeah,
like,
and
right? 'Cause that's what characterizes each one of those patches.
Can
it's
you pull up the
almost.
Evo tree again?
Oh,
This is also our Thrivepedia. It shares a name with the Sporepedia. Otherwise, it doesn't have much in common. But we had to have a Thrivepedia because you guys had a Sporepedia, so tradition.
Yeah, I want to see like this creature in the corner, like like I want to see that guy. I want to like see the chemical processes playing out on those parts. That would make those parts feel so cool.
oh,
That it's like,
so almost like opening up the editor screen for that organism, if that makes sense.
but I'm saying that's why I want to see the detail of the organism in the main while I'm playing the game. So it's like while I'm
In
playing the
game while
game,
you're
I
fooling
Oh,
see
okay,
around.
okay,
in
got it.
game while I'm playing, I'm like seeing little bits of I'm seeing the compounds list. The compounds are rendered inside of the cell, the same way they're rendered in the environment, right? Make that connection really concrete. And then like I see them moving through that. I see rather than like a little arrow with a number, it's like I just see them getting. It's like I see a little pump working in there, just doing the little bit, particle effect transformation. I like see it happening. I'm not being told it's happening,
It's
right?
like Factorio in your
I think it's
belly.
going to make those. Yeah, exactly. Factorio in your belly, exactly. And then
It's
it's
like
like, and then
opening up
makes the
a machine as it's working
yeah.
and
And then it makes
seeing
the parts that
how
I'm
it
playing
moves.
with in the editor so cool. I'm like, oh, that's that little purple gizmo is the thing that converts this into that, right? It's gonna make them feel so much more like fun toys because I know that like when I go to play with them, they're gonna be doing this cool thing, right? The system you
Interesting.
guys have here is very cool. I'm just like I'm just pushing on the sort of uh like because as you're walking me through this, I'm like, oh, this is what's happening, right? So I'm trying to get my head around it, and I'm just thinking like with my design approach, I'm like, how would I make what you're telling me like just more clear? You know, I mean, this is the thing. Like when if you watch Will Wright's his talk about his first game he ever made, his GDC talk where he talks about like he did all this cool simulation and it's like he's like, yeah, I did all this stuff, but like nobody knew this was happening because I didn't show it. You guys are showing a lot, but it's not in their case, it's more like making it. And I have to say, like, I'm like not a I like things to be super. I'm like kind of a very basic gamer, really. I want things to be super basic and clear to me. I don't want to work hard.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. And I mean,
But I think
I'll go ahead then.
most people don't.
Yeah.
This is cool.
I mean, that is a big kind of conflict we see, or constant question of how can we make this more clear to the player, because there's
Yeah.
a lot going on and it's all connected in a way, but maybe not in all the ways that a new player might understand immediately. So
And you see
Well,
that
it's like there's
disparate.
just so much.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. There's just it's part of it is like it's a lot of it. When I work with people on design stuff, it's like the question is always it's always like, oh, this is important, that's important, that's important. And the fundamental question is, what's the hierarchy? if someone comes in, this is like basic graphic design, but basic like any design, like what's the hierarchy? Like what's the headline? What's the next most important thing? What is the kind of what's the relative hierarchical importance of all that information? And then you have to have the display or the interaction reflect that hierarchy. But it starts with becoming clear about what's important. You have to have a clear picture or theory about what's important. The relative importance. Everything's relative. You know,
Absolutely, yeah, makes
everything
sense.
cannot be in boldface, 72 point type, right? Then nothing is bold.
Yeah, absolutely, that makes sense.
Okay, sorry. I feel like I'm just kind of like preaching to you guys. I'm sorry.
No, but it's very interesting.
We'll take. How much do we owe you for the consultation?
Yeah.
No, it's fine. This is fun for me. Sorry. I'm excited to see this.
I'm
Um,
glad.
yeah, this is really cool. This is you know, this is impressive. And it's cool that there's something beautiful about the way your project is working as an multi-generational open source project too. It's like poetic and it's almost kind of appropriate to the content in multiple ways.
Yeah,
Spore itself was this never-ending, many years long project, and the project of life itself takes many generations. It's like a cathedral, but bigger.
wow, that's very poetic. You sound like an Irish poet.
Well, there are a lot of people on the team now, and I'm sure a lot of our previous people are very jealous that we get the chance to finally show this off to you and have something
Yes,
to finally show off after so many generations.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you guys should be proud of this. I see the coolness of what you have here. It's very cool. So I wish you the best with sort of, yeah, with pushing this forward.
we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah.
And like almost every feature you see here was, somebody's baby. Someone was championing it and pushing it forward. We have one full-time developer who's, working on the rote day-to-day stuff, but a lot of this was, hey, I want a procedurally generated patch map, and I'm going to put in the effort to put it through.
Yeah.
The chemoreceptor was one 3D artist who was rounded up programmers and game designers to actually make this thing finally be in the game because no one was going to be
Look,
the first
now we're gonna.
mover.
This patch thing is super interesting, I have to say. It's got like a real, I love the kind of fogginess. Fog of War is like, that kind of like, I
Mm,
don't know, like, that kind of like, and I love the clarity of it. And also just like how it represents, I'm like, oh yeah, I started in the hydrothermal vent and I'm like moving through space to different environments. Yeah, I love that.
yeah,
That's great.
there's an interesting question there because obviously the world to something this microscopic is very abstract, and
Yeah,
even
yeah,
the
yeah.
gameplay.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's a question of how to
exactly.
portray
Yeah.
these environments to these tiny
Right.
organisms that can only see a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That's right. It's right. It's not a map. It's like I mean it's a map, but it's not like a traditional two-dimensional, it's not like a naturalistic map. It's like an abstract this like abstracted graph captures that like problem. Like what does space mean to a bacteria? Like
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
uh, I was just like this is probably near that. But it's like that because that's it. It's like that kind of really local like adjacency. Like
Yeah,
yeah. And also like I don't know, yeah. I can also use my imagination about where I am in the world. Yeah.
yeah. One thing I try to focus on a lot of times is how can we greater differentiate each patch from each other, make the gameplay more substantial. And that was a pretty tough question until recently, where things like currents and terrain have been introduced to the game in the past like few months actually. So we're almost in the process of figuring out how
Currents.
to maximize those things in these games or in these patches. At least the differences between
Yeah.
each patches through these features.
Well, great. Well, this was fun. Thanks, guys, for taking the time to
It's
show
been our
this to
pleasure,
me
honestly.
and make
Absolutely, yeah,
this. Yeah, it's also like the biggest compliment to see you guys, you and your team and the teams that came before you do this project inspired by the work that me and many of my colleagues put so much time into. So that's it's touching.
There are a
uh,
couple other spiritual successors. I don't know how much you ever looked up Spore and its legacy after the game, or if you're one of those creatives that's just like done, pack it up, go on to the next thing. But there are a few other games that I could point you to that I think you might find interesting.
Yes.
Creature Crafter took the exact opposite approach to Thrive. Like everything that was in
Uh-huh.
Spore that's not in Thrive, Creature Crafter kind of went in the exact opposite direction. It's like playing Roblox but with the Spore Creature Creator.
Oh, look
There's
at
a lot of
that.
projects in the middle.
Interesting.
Elysian Eclipses too. Very Spore
Oh, look at
inspired.
that. It really Elysian Eclipse. Oh, this is interesting. Oh wow, that's cute. It's like very cartoony. And then they play soccer and go to a concert. What? That's amazing. That's really funny.
All right, well,
Oh
we've
wow,
made it up to
they really
Ice.
did the spine and everything. That's so interesting.
You did some very pioneering work, sir, or Doctor.
Absolutely.
Well, a lot of other people too. What's the other title you were telling me about? What's the other one you're saying? At least something?
Elysian Eclipses, I think.
We shot
Elysian
them out in like
Eclipse.
yeah,
Yeah.
every second Thrive video.
Oh, look at that. It's like the cell. That's pretty. Also pretty. Oh, wow, it's like it's so funny. It's like so cute. It's so yeah, you guys really yeah, I see now. I see your point about the sort of stylistic direction. Well, that's interesting too. It's like because we were we only got to make one Spore in a sense. And we had to we had to make a choice. And
You made a game about
now
people
there's
making their own stuff, so eventually people made their own games. It
yeah,
it kind of
Yeah.
follows.
exactly. Well, my theory, after writing my book, like after studying, which is like a lot about the history of Praxis and the history of simulation and artificial life, um, my theory, the history of computing is that I think that the medium of computer games is fundamentally about making computer games. Like you just look at how people like it's like what you look at games like Space War, for instance, like the old computer games, like there was not like a Space War game you would get. Space War was like an idea, it's like folk culture. Like you would go and like re-implement it, your own version of it yourself on your computer, and people will share code and reuse it sometimes. But there was a lot of like local recreations. Just again and again, the history of and when Steve Wozniak makes the Apple II, he like really wants to have BASIC on it because BASIC is always going to be able to play all the games he wants to be able to play and typing them in. And people, then someone like Bill Budge comes along and makes Pinball Construction Set because he's been typing in Wozniak's Breakout game over, over and over again and makes his own version of it. It's like it's about computer games. I think is about making games. I just saw that so many times.
That is very cool. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't have a more
That's fine.
epiphanious response.
Now Steve
was-
is pointing me to No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah, No Man's Sky. That's a very procedural
I mean,
kind of
I
gigantic.
played that like
Yeah.
I played that for like a little bit when it first came out on the PlayStation, I think.
Mm.
But I know they kept working on a lot. Well, this has been fun, guys. I should probably get going.
Thank you very much for stopping by. I know I went a little over the.
Yeah.
Thank you very
It
much.
was,
It was a pleasure speaking
yeah.
with you.
Absolutely, yes. Spore was
Likewise.
very huge in my childhood, so really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for reaching out and having such great questions and such fun stuff to show me and talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for being
Take care.
here.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Bye.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.